Are we ready? Good. Okay. Welcome all of you. Thank you for coming to the December Board of Education meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order. If you will please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, item 3.03 is our superintendent's comments.
Thank you, Dr. Towers.
Thank you.
Welcome to tonight's Board of Education meeting. We're glad you have joined us, either online or here in person. We have a few administrators retiring this year, and tonight I have the privilege to introduce two administrators that will be taking positions in our district next year. If I say your name, please stand at this time. So Tiffany Worland, let's give her a hand. Round of applause. Tiffany is our assistant principal between Harris and Monroe Elementaries. She will be our new principal at Monroe Elementary next year. She was replacing Kathy Costas, who is retiring, and we are so excited for Tiffany. We know she will continue on leading the great work that is taking place at Monroe. Congratulations, Tiffany. Second, we have Ann Westbrook. We can give her a hand as well. Ann will be our next early childhood principal, as Carrie Holt is retiring after this year. Ann comes to us from the Melville School District with a vast experience in early childhood administration, and we welcome Ann to our SCSD family. We're so glad she's joining our family and our team. So congratulations to both of you. Very excited about the two of them joining our team. Our vice president of our SC West Max Scholars Program, Guadalupe Vallejo, I think I'm saying that right? Vallejo, is that right? I think you got. I think it's Vallejo.
I think you had it the first time. I think you had it the first time.
Vallejo. I just can't say it very well. Sorry. But Guadalupe was just awarded. This is really cool. Sorry, Guadalupe, that I just totally messed up your last name. But she was just awarded a Quest Bridge Scholarship on December 1st, which will give her a full ride scholarship to the University of Notre Dame.
Wow, that's great.
So,
Out of 1,000 something, Ken?
so some quick statistics on this. Earlier this year, Guadalupe competed with over 16,000 applicants, actually over 16,500, and was chosen as one of around 6,500 or so, 6,300 finalists to be considered for the Quest Bridge National College Match Program. The pool of about 6,300 finalists was narrowed down to about 1,600 or 1,700 high school students, including Guadalupe, and then that were matched with one of Quest Bridge's 45 college partners. Guadalupe is a member of our NHS, our HOSA, our Renaissance, and the girls varsity tennis team, and Mrs. Stephanie Moran is her school counselor. We are so excited for Guadalupe and want to congratulate her on being a 2021 Quest Bridge National College Match Scholarship recipient, and she's on her way to the University of Notre Dame on a full ride scholarship. Another hand for Guadalupe. Winter sports are off to a great start. Can you believe we're in winter sports already? SCHS wrestling, girls and boys, really off to a great start, looking primed for another successful season. And our St. Charles West girls basketball team has a strong start. They got a tough game tonight on the road at Troy, and looks like they're going to have a pretty special season as well. We've had several choir and orchestra and band concerts as well to celebrate the holiday season, and just awesome. Our students are just so talented, and it's great to see them in action. We are having a new podcast episode actually tomorrow, so we're excited about that, so stay tuned for that. And then tonight, we worked hard to prepare the following for you, a COVID update. Obviously, that is always a crowd favorite. And then COVID leave resolution, proposed calendars, bond projects, health services, program review, an audit review report, and also a district financial report. And I just want to encourage everyone to keep going strong. Let's continue working together and making 21-22 our best year yet. Together, we can and will reach, teach, and empower all students. And we are 6 days away from winter break. And I just want to say happy holidays to everyone. So, thank you.
Okay, item 3.04, we have board communications. Ellen, did we have something?
We got a letter an email from Logan Mary. Dear City of St. Charles School District Board of Education, I am a student who graduated from St. Charles West High School. In November 2019, I lost my best friend to suicide. I also have struggled with various mental health issues throughout the course of my education. During my time attending the St. Charles School District, I feel I was given little education on the importance of mental health and how to treat mental illness, and I feel that this is an extremely important issue in today's society. Roughly 20% of the population is directly impacted by mental illness. Among these, 1 in 5, nearly half go untreated for their illnesses. Those who are left without treatment often struggle immensely compared to those who are able to receive treatment, and the impacts extend beyond the individuals who are suffering. Those with untreated mental health issues are unlikely to be able to function properly within society, leading to a decrease in motivation and productivity, as well as less participation in the job market. This is an immensely important issue because of the vast number of people that are impacted by it, both indirectly and directly, and society could face severe consequences if these issues of mental health are not addressed. The most important step toward aiding those with mental health struggles is promoting awareness and education, and the best place to start this process is within the classroom. I ask that mental health awareness and response be integrated as a mandatory part of the curriculum in some form. I feel that it is important for both students and staff to be educated in both recognizing and responding to signs of mental illness so that those who are struggling can get the help they need. Additionally, I feel that students and staff need to be educated on what resources they have available for them so it is easier for those in need to pursue treatment. Implementing measures to increase both awareness and education relating to mental illness will directly increase quality of life for many, improve overall productivity and morality within society, and help to promote public health and safety. Sincerely, Logan Mary.
Thank you, Ellen. Item 3.05 is our audience comments time. And Dr. Mullen, if you'll read our little disclaimer.
In regard to public participation at board meetings, all regular and special meetings of the board shall be open to the public. Since the board desires to be a good listener and be responsive to their community, persons desiring to address the board may do so during the time so allotted on the agenda and according to established procedures. During the audience portion of each board meeting, patrons are invited by the president to speak for or against any proposal on the tentative agenda or on any other school concern. The individual is asked to identify him or herself, limit comments to a few minutes, and avoid discussing personalities. The president reserves the right to limit the number of presentations and/or length of comments. At the discretion of the president, patrons may be recognized at other times during the board meeting. The board is very interested in audience comments. According to board policies, members cannot respond during the actual meeting. The board will listen to and research all audience comments. If necessary, additional follow-up will occur through district administrators.
In that disclaimer that Dr. Malone reads, it says the time so allotted for comment. And in this district, it's a 3-minute time limit. And some of the emails we had are kind of long, so I just wanted to prepare that Dr. Malone will try to get through all of it for each one of the correspondence. But if the timer goes off, then we stop at that point.
Should I read slowly or fast?
Clearly.
Okay, clearly.
We read
Clearly, okay. The first email that we have here is from Elena Shendova. She has a parent of children here in our school district. I have written, good evening, board members. I have written comments in the past. It is very frustrating to see how my words fall on deaf ears. You are supposed to represent all of us. First of all, why do you not allow more than 12 parents to attend the meetings? Where did this number come from? Don't you think it is time to change this? Second, why are some of you not wearing masks? For the parents who haven't paid attention, there is no mask mandate in admin buildings where students are not present. Where in the CDC website do you find that specific recommendation? It has been stated at every meeting that the St. Charles School District has to follow the mask and quarantine guidance from the St. Charles County Health Department and other local and state agencies. You have probably heard that a judge in Cole County, Missouri, has ruled that health departments across the state of Missouri cannot issue health orders, and any that have been issued must be lifted. The Attorney General of Missouri has already sent a letter to the school districts in Missouri stating that his office will enforce the court's order across the state. He is asking parents to report to his office the school districts that don't comply with the court ruling. Multiple cease and desist orders have been sent out already. It has become obvious that some of the board members have no interest in discussing the issue and just rush to vote for a mask mandate every time. I am asking you why. Have you ever read an actual study on how ineffective cloth masks are at preventing the spread of COVID? Have you ever heard an actual scientist explain why cloth masks don't work? Did you know that the diameter of the coronavirus is 1,000 times smaller than the diameter of a human hair? If you can get a human hair past the side of your mask, then your mask is not effective. Do you think the masks kids wear don't have gaps? Did you know that there are other mitigation solutions that are more effective and less damaging to the mental health of our children? Solution one is to open a window, and that would allow the viral concentration. Yes, it is that simple. Schools in Germany kept the windows in the classrooms open all year round last year. Have you heard that there are 6 to 7 technologies that destroy viruses and bacteria in the air? One of them is called bipolar ionization. It reduces viruses and bacteria in the air by 90%. It has been installed in schools. It is not a novel idea. Would the St. Charles School District Director of Facilities, I apologize, but I have to end there. The next one is from John Genenbacher. Good evening, board. Hope the email finds you well. I will make this short. I am writing you to show my support for removing masks of all children and staff if their parents or they so choose that they do not need to wear them. I am sure you are well aware of the recent news from Missouri Attorney General. Yes, I have already received the St. Charles School District canned communication response to this. There are many reasons why I believe these children should no longer be forced to wear a mask if their parents have decided that their health no longer requires it. I know in the beginning you were just doing what you thought was right, what everyone else was doing, and what the CDC guidelines were. Now I ask that after 2 years of this, you take a look at what is going on around you and change your decision. There are so many things that don't make sense about you continuing to force K through 6 to wear masks. Please explain, please explain how my children can attend St. Charles West versus St. Charles High School basketball games in a packed indoor gym that does not require masks, but are required to wear masks in the classroom, which I would think would be a safer environment than a gym full of thousands of unmasked people. I attended this game and loved that masks were not required. But it makes no sense that you continue to force the same kids that attended this game, who ran around, sat next to, shared a pretzel with, yelled it in each other's ears because the atmosphere was so loud and electric, all unmasked, with those same kids with no health issues being the result of it. Side note, Dr. Seifert was there unmasked, which obviously I have no issue with, but what does that show his staff and teachers at K through 6 that have to be masked in the same indoor environment? Actually, it's not the same. The classroom is probably safer when it comes to the nonsensical COVID restrictions. Number 2, Orchard Farm School District is 20 miles away. They have an optional mask since the beginning of school year for the whole district. They have had 0 issues that would have caused them to change this. Sure, they have had kids and staff test positive for COVID, and yes, they have had kids get sick from colds or other everyday illnesses, but those children and staff have had a way more normal school year than my kids, who have to wear a piece of cloth over their face for this year. They are 20 minutes away. Why would their circumstances be any different from ours? Are you saying they practice safer procedures than St. Charles School District? If that's the case, this one is from Teresa Linzenik, excuse me, also a parent of a student in our district. High school board, my name is Teresa Linzenik. My husband and I have a daughter in high school in the district. Tuesday, December the 7th, 2021 was the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor Day, the day that got the USA in World War II. If we did not win World War II, there wouldn't be a Board of Education in this farm, because we would be under a totalitarian rule. Our daughter did not hear any mention of Pearl Harbor Day at her school on Tuesday. I don't blame the school, since there is much on their plate, but I do see the need for us to remember important dates such as December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, when America, the sleeping giant, woke up in the fragility of freedom. In order to move forward in wisdom as a country, we must not only look at our past sins, but our past successes, such as our fight for freedom in World War II. The sacrifice that kept our freedom, such as my dad's Army unit of 200, with only 12 surviving to the end of the war. Because of the sacrifice of many, we have freedoms such as freedom to discuss and debate about issues that affect our district and the students we serve. By the way, I appreciate that school board asks the hard questions and digs deeper on topics of concern. Without dialogue, there is no democracy. Our children must recognize our past fights for freedom to preserve the constitutional freedoms in our future. It would be nice to remember Pearl Harbor Day in our schools. Thank you. Then I got one last one. This one is from Cruz Throw, St. Charles School District Leadership. Wait a minute, is this the same one that you read? No, okay. Good evening. I am a current parent in the district, and my children are 4th-generation students in St. Charles School District. My husband and I are both proud alumni. I am also an educator in a neighboring district. I have taken an active role in my children's education by serving on parent-teacher organizations and district committees. However, I have taken a passive stance in the district's COVID protocols, patiently sitting on the sideline waiting for the district to do the right thing. I can say from personal conversations with other district parents and employees, there are many of us who have been passively and patiently waiting for mandates and quarantine protocols to be lifted. In a previous board meeting, Dr. Seifert said, "I am not going to argue the science of it. The fact is, masks keep our students in school. This statement is in reference to the contact tracing and quarantine protocol recommendations set out by the St. Charles County Department of Public Health. We all know those recommendations are no longer in place. What is your justification now? Earlier in the fall, mask mandates were removed for 9 through 12 grade students based on the assumption many were vaccinated or at least had the option to be. Well, now that the parents, caregivers of our younger students have that same option, now is the time to extend that same freedom to our younger students and staff in those buildings to breathe freely. Can we also just acknowledge the irony that hundreds of students, families, and staff were at a recent basketball game where the majority were unmasked and did not socially distance? Did you see a surge in cases and modified quarantines after that event? Students are attending family, social functions, and playing sports outside of school unmasked. District employees are attending family functions and social gatherings unmasked. Also, our neighboring and other local businesses have removed their mask mandates, but students and staff still have to be masked in school. What's the true benefit when most people are not wearing masks in other settings? And the reason to keep kids in school no longer stands per the health department guidelines. I understand the district and many other districts in the surrounding area have spoken with their legal counsel and have been advised that the Cole County Court ruling. Thank you.
And that's your last one, isn't it?
I am finished.
Okay. And we do have some audience members who are present this evening that wish to speak to the board. Brendan, your card's up.
Good evening. My name is Brendan Kearns. I'm the president of the St. Charles Education Association. I'd like to start out by wishing everybody in our community a very happy holidays. Right now, our members are working hard to conclude a successful semester of school. Our district's prudent guidance has meant that students have been able to stay in person where they are at their most successful. Also, on behalf of our organization, I'd like to thank the board and central office for the additional 2 days of winter break that we'll have to rest and recover, and for the $1,000 each of our employees will be receiving. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brendan. Nathan Hodge.
I wasn't even planning on attending tonight till I got the good news that you guys were all listed as criminals by the judge and the attorney general. I had sent in an email, but I'll go ahead and read it myself since I'm here. I do find it kind of odd that 2 of the council member or board members walked around freely with no masks, and then as soon as the cameras came on, you 2 put them on when you sat down. But here's my email. The masks need to be taken off the children. You all claimed that you would remove the mask mandate once we hit certain criteria. That criteria came and went, and you did nothing. The next month, we had even better numbers. You guys caved from your draconian rules slightly and allowed high school students to remove them, but not anyone still too young to speak up for themselves. Last month, you guys said the masks being removed at the high school level really made no change in the still improving numbers, proving that the masks are useless. However, you still refuse to allow the other kids to remove theirs. You all acted surprised that Thanksgiving was approaching and pondered, will being with the same family the kids are with all year round make them all sick? Thanksgiving is on the same day every year. To those of us that can easily think for ourselves, this came as no surprise when it was on the same day again this year. I don't feel children should have to be masked to begin with. You should never teach children to live in fear and hide. You should teach them to face adversity head on. However, early on, it was at least understandable. That time has since come and gone. If you want a vaccine, you have already had it. If you don't, then don't. But forcing children to wear a mask to make an adult not be scared is child abuse. Any of you that vote against the masks tonight, Merry Christmas. The rest of you, I hope the Attorney General locks up.
Next audience card is from Caleb.
Good evening. My name is Caleb Mertz. I am a junior at St. Charles High School, and tonight I come to you to ask for optional masking for all students K through 12. Now, kids ages 12 through 18 have been eligible to be vaccinated since early August of this year. Now, they have been eligible and they have had enough time to receive both doses of the COVID vaccine. Now, 5 through 11-year-olds have also been eligible to receive their 2 doses since November 3rd. Now, this has given enough time for all students in every grade to be fully vaccinated. If a parent really wanted to get their child vaccinated, they have now had the time and the ample opportunity to get their child vaccinated. Now, earlier this year, you, the board, stated that the reason to keep the mask mandates was because the students hadn't had the opportunity to be fully vaccinated. Well, now they have. When the high school students had their opportunity to be vaccinated, you removed the mask mandate. Now currently, like I said earlier, all kids K through 12 have had the opportunity to be vaccinated if they so choose. So, by the logic that you all went by earlier this same year, you should now be willing to remove that same mask mandate for staff and students in all K through 8 buildings. Now last month, during your discussion of these COVID rules, you stated that students are not catching COVID from their fellow students at school. One of you even said that most kids who are a close contact don't end up developing COVID. So if they aren't catching COVID at school, then why make them wear masks at school? Now I encourage you to make the decision to remove the mask mandate this month, not put it off until after winter break and not put it off till later on. Please make the decision tonight. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you all for coming and sharing your comments. We're ready for item 3.06. Do I have a motion to amend or adopt the agenda? Oh, I forget that. Yeah, before we get into our exhilarating meeting, we always take a break. If you want to, this would be the time for you to quietly exit if you have other things you want to attend to. And we're going to take just a short break. Thank you all.
Congrats, ladies.
Thank you, ladies. I got to put in my notes to take a break. Honestly, I don't remember to do it. Okay, this is our record short break. We're ready for item 3.06. Do I have a motion to amend or adopt the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. The consent agenda, item 4.01. For efficiency, the school board utilizes a consent agenda. Items placed on the consent agenda are routine in nature, are among the many decisions that the board has already determined are in the domain of the administration. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'm-
Thank you.
I
Do I have a
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Those opposed? That passes. My computer is, okay. Item 6.01. This is a policy change. This is our second reading. This policy change, BDA, was one that we looked at in October. And we did have a lengthy discussion. The portion of that policy had to do with electronic attendance, and in the getting prepared for our second reading, I did contact MSBA and talked with our attorneys there. Really, the other portion, if you remember in this policy, it says according to state statute, and what they're referring to is the Sunshine Law. And so it's already stated in the Sunshine Law that board members can only vote through teleconferencing, through video conferencing for roll call votes. They sent a chart, this was from MSBA, simply stating that video conferencing allows members to vote for roll call votes, whereas those members who are not physically present but are on the phone or some other electronic means will not be allowed to vote roll call votes. So that what I'm getting at then is this policy tonight, we can certainly discuss all of it again. The motion would be to move to approve the changes to this policy. If we choose to not approve these changes, it will revert back to the original policy, which already has in it video conferencing. So did that clear it up? Yeah.
So if a person calls in and is not visible, that person can vote on other matters, but not on roll call matters.
Not on roll call matters. And they.
But not if they're on Zoom? If they're on Zoom, they can? If they're on phone, they can't? Or
can't.
whatever
They have to be,
the,
it has to,
right, so the
video-
telephone is different than,
Yeah.
then,
the vi-
okay.
So
Thank you.
video conferencing would
Okay,
allow
thank you.
members to do roll call votes,
Yeah.
which typically are during closed session. But there are times when we've had roll call votes during our open session. So if a member was participating electronically with, let's say, video conferencing like Zoom, they could then vote
Yeah.
if they had a roll call
Yeah,
vote.
you just can't call in. I mean, you can Zoom on your phone, but you just can't call in on your phone.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That's the way, I mean, I Zoomed on my phone the whole time we were in COVID lockdown. I always used my phone.
Zooming in, you're saying they have to be physically
Visible.
Well, that's
I-
what they're trying to change to it.
No,
That's
actually-
what they,
I'm saying on that paper, if you
Let me
have to
see.
be video conferencing, you can't just do teleconference,
And-
right,
and
but you
by-
don't have to be visible, you just have to be teleconferenced in,
video conference.
video conferenced in. I mean, you can turn your video off, though. You don't have to be seen. I don't think that's true. I disagree. I don't think that's true.
Well,
I
according to
disagree.
Susan Goldhammer, video conferencing means that you're visible. I'm looking quickly.
It's not what it means. It means it doesn't mean you're necessarily visible. I can be video conferencing and have my camera off, and I'm still fully
No.
engaged.
You must be visible.
I disagree with your interpretation.
I'm telling you what Susan Goldhammer said. And this is the part of the Sunshine Law. It says you must be visible.
I've also chat with the NSBA, and we do have to, and to do a roll call vote, you have to be visibly seen.
So that's just closed session voting?
Well, any roll call vote.
Do we do roll call in open?
Sometimes. We did when we just did our forum. That was a roll call vote. So really, if we go back to.
So this throughout the entire meeting is not necessarily the case. It's just to vote?
Yeah.
Right,
Right,
yeah,
right,
okay.
okay? That helps clear that up. So is there any other discussion you want on this before we put?
Yeah, you're saying, though, if we vote no on this,
Yes,
and it regresses back,
to the original.
we're still good.
Because we didn't.
We're covered.
We didn't realize that when this said video conferencing,
Right.
it doesn't, because we've been
Okay.
trying to just clear it up to say visibility. Well, we don't have to put that in there.
Gotcha. For roll call?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Video conferencing is required for roll call votes. Yes. Okay.
I second.
Second. We'll do a roll call vote on this.
So let me just be clear. So if we vote no, we're going back to the original?
That's
If-
right.
Okay, gotcha.
And actually, I am saying the original, having
Is
talked
fine.
with Susan,
Yeah.
covers why we
Okay.
tried to clean it up a little bit. So.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
No.
If I, just to be clear, if I say yes, I'm saying we're adopting the new.
Yes.
No.
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 All right, so this change has been defeated, and we will continue with the BDA as the policy as it is. Thank you. Okay, item 7.02, this is the calendar for 20. Oh, what did I jumped, I'm sorry. I said my, mine's been doing this. A COVID update. Dr. Seifert, give us some more information on COVID.
So we have prepared another report presentation for you tonight. The first, it seems like it's rather long, there's about 15 slides, but actually we're going to focus on 10 through 13. So just remind everybody that the why is obviously to keep students and staff safe and keep them in school as normal as possible. That is our why. And slides 2 through 9 basically talk about the entry plan that we've had with the COVID changes that we've made. And we're going to focus on slide 10 that says, where are we now? But I like to keep all of that in there as a reference for everybody to be able to see kind of where we've headed, because we are progressing, we are moving forward, we are trying to make sure that we are balanced in our approach. And I want to go, this first slide is just about where we're now and kind of where we're at. So just so we're all understanding of what that looks like. And so the first slide talks about masking. So right now, obviously, early childhood and 9 through 12 is optional. K through 8 is expected mandated with masks on. Now, if we talk about quarantining, we have to be careful what the word quarantining means at this point. But for us, our quarantining talks about now is that an exposed student, regardless if the positive case were masked or not, can stay in school, but then they need to wear a mask for 14 days. And so we are to the point now where we literally have 0 quarantines, people staying home if they've been exposed. Obviously, staying home is if you are having symptoms, if you're sick, or if you have a positive COVID test, you're staying home. So, and it says except ECC, that needed to come out of there because we've actually moved to ECC doing it as well. So now ECC, and you guys will formalize that tonight and approve that, but ECC through 12th grade have the same protocol in terms of the quarantine, because one of the biggest issues that we have is that people don't like the fact that kids are staying out that are healthy. We understand that. So we are to the point now where none of our children, if they're exposed, have to stay home. They can come to school. We've just asked them to wear a mask for 14 days for mitigation purposes. The other thing that we have done is it's not just this was just for kids at school, but if our parents call us, because that is just them being honest and truthful, they don't have to call us and say, hey, our kids have been exposed to COVID in our house. We've also extended to those kids that if they've been exposed, they have no symptoms, they can come to school. So really, you'll see our COVID numbers in just a second. We have 0 kids in quarantine. Now we have kids at home because they're positive, or they have symptoms or they're sick, and we would like for them to stay home if they're sick. But the quarantine piece in terms of kids having to be out just because of exposure is pretty much done. Now, what we have had a surge of lately, and the excitement this week has been from our Attorney General, 2 things. One is our court ruling from Cole County, and obviously a lot of people have perceptions and a lot of people have a lot of angles to what this looks like, but I just wrote a quick statement, and it just in here talks about the recent court ruling at Cole County, Missouri. It strikes down the local health officials' power to impose the COVID-19 orders. So in short, this ruling for us as you all, as a Board of Education, does not affect our Board of Education right to approve the mitigation plans and protocols that are best for our kids that you guys vote on every month. We've talked about this before too. We have, there's a Senate bill out there that says that every 30 days or every board meeting we need to make sure we're checking. There's still people who don't even think that really pertains to districts, but we have taken that on even from the get-go this year. And so every month we review, and every month you all approve our mitigation plans and protocols moving forward. So plus, this ruling does not affect, and really, just so everybody knows, because I know it was really exciting this week, but this actually, the cold counting rule for health departments doesn't actually go in effect until December 22nd. So nothing changes for us. We will continue on this plan and keep our protocols as is, as you all vote them. Obviously, we'll talk about the balanced approach in just a second, what our options are. The health department, though, is reviewing all the information and will be sending out hopefully more information about how they're going to proceed. But, however, this ruling does obviously minimize their health department, the health department's role in quarantining and mitigating the spread of COVID. In fact, it was stated at their county council meeting, and I have talked to the health director myself this week, that they're currently not sending quarantine letters out. So, if you would say the good news about that is we're not quarantining kids. Our kids are coming to school if they've been exposed either at home or in school and come to, and again, we don't have any kids out quarantined because, and I know we've had some early childhood, we've just kind of switched this with early childhood, so they're coming back in, so if there's a couple of them home that after this board meeting, they'll be coming back, but we don't have K through 12, we don't have kids that are home because of being quarantined, because of being exposure. So we do align with that court ruling already. And then the modified quarantine, obviously, where students can only go to school if they're exposed, that's obviously obsolete. So the next step, I just wanted to put in this because I certainly don't want to ignore it. And I know there are some people who have, there's been some great debate and some, again, I would say excitability on a letter that came from the Attorney General this week. Chris, can you click on that for us and just pull it up? And go on down to, keep going, please. That's good. Because there's some very specific language in here that if you're reading that, it certainly seems like it's official. It certainly seems like it directs the attention directly to schools, and there is no beating around the bush with this of what the Attorney General wants us to do, and that's get masks off kids and stop quarantining. So if you'll see that second, the last paragraph there, in addition, state law does not delegate authority to school officials to issue mask mandates, quarantine orders, or other public orders. Your school district should stop enforcing and publicizing any such orders immediately. So obviously that's very specific language. So when you get a letter like that, obviously from the Attorney General, it's something that you need to check into. So and then before I go on, there's also, you can go back to the slides, thank you. So then at the bottom of that slide, I also want to, right there, go back up, detention parents. There's also Facebook posts or social media posts from the Attorney General's office that's basically urging parents, and we've had some parents that certainly have reached out to me to tell them that they have certainly turned my name in and turned our school district name in, and they are actively wanting them to turn districts in and basically say that we are still mandating masks and different things. So there's certainly a very strong campaign out there from the Attorney General that a lot of our parents are following and understanding, but I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we clear that up, and we certainly will do that in a letter tomorrow, but we wanted to have that conversation with you all tonight. So if we continue with the next slide with where we're now, I'm not going to read this all to you, but obviously what I was kind of alluding to before that I went to that Facebook post or that social media post is that obviously there's some very strong language that we needed to check out. So not only with our legal counsel, but also with the Missouri School Boards Association that obviously has a legal team and that represents the majority of the school districts in the state of Missouri. We wanted to make sure of what their perception of the law and so both our legal team and also the MSBA legal team clearly have cleared not only statutes, laws that basically clearly speak that a board of education that has been voted on and elected from the people have the right to make those mitigations and those decisions. And that you have that right. So I just want to make sure you saw all that. And then from our legal team, it's clear that obviously the Attorney General does not want us to have mandates, but at this point, that Cole County case specifically talks about health department rules. Now, there's a lot of chatter and conversations about, have we used recommendations from our health department? Sure we have. They've been a great partner for us. But everything that we've gotten as a recommendation from them, you all have voted that as our own mitigation steps and procedures. And so that is your right as a board to do that.
I mean, for those listening at home, I think what you're saying is that Eric Schmidt has no authority over this board.
No authority over the Board of Education.
That's right.
Making
Okay.
specific.
I just want to make sure our parents at home
Making
understand that.
specific, for you all to
Right.
to vote on what the mitigation protocols and practices for our kids and what you think the best interest in. You have been elected from the people to make those decisions, and that Cole County case has nothing to do with what you all do as a Board of Education.
That's correct.
Now, to clarify that, there have been times that we've said early on that the health department quarantines, right? We don't quarantine, we contact trace. Well, now that's clearly not happening, and so we're not quarantining kids, but we are contact tracing. We are making sure that we have mitigations in place to help, obviously, hopefully still kind of contain what's happening with COVID. Before I move on to numbers, that's a great clarifying point. Is there anything else that I can ask, or do you want to ask me at this point to clarify? Okay. So the numbers. So we took the quarantine numbers off because that's not an issue for us anymore. But right now we have 3 active staff cases. That's 19 in total for the year. And right now we sit at we sit at 25 active student cases. Now, that's the most we've had this year. But again, I'm balanced. I know people don't think we are, but I'm very balanced in what I say. Last year we could have 20 in a day. And you guys, we lived through that. So it's relatively speaking, but right now, with Thanksgiving, with obviously Omicron's coming on, there's 25 active cases. And last month, I think we were in the single digits. So there is a rise in cases. And then there's 162 total cases that we've had, and then there's just the breakdown. The good news right now, and actually, Chris, can you click on the COVID dashboard so people can see it, just so they know that we do actually, you need access. There's we have a COVID dashboard that we certainly look at continually, so sorry about that, that's okay. The good news is right now is it looks to me like, and Julie, you tell me if I'm wrong, but we all have 1 or 2 cases here, 2 or 3 cases here. We're not seeing 10 cases in one building. So it's kind of spread out, but certainly 25 is the most we've had. Okay? So Chris, if you go to the next slide, and we'll just ask questions after that, but that's okay. So then this is a key statistics that we've been looking at, and I know people have referenced these numbers. We were getting better and better. We never got into that 5% or low, but we were getting close to that. We were in that 7 range, even 6 range, and we were feeling good about where we're at. Now we're back up to about 10.6 in the county, and the city is about 9.3, so that tells you we're in that substantial risk or greater than 10%. So the good news is the transmission rate's pretty low at 0.85, but just we use that as a gauge as well. So questions about numbers?
Well, the past months, we have made our decision, I think, based on this chart here, this one that presently is showing. And, I guess, with all the pressure that we have to get rid of the mask, if we are true to our past decision-making, this says things are not getting better.
Right. At least we've got a spike right now.
Yeah.
And when we went to, and this is not a rebuttal to that, but when we went to optional masks for high school, I think we were in that about 7 or 8 range maybe.
But we're at 9.
Yeah.
That's-
And
But that's in the community. This is community. right?
So
Not-
the St. Charles
right,
County, the whole
right.
county is 10.6.
So that
And
St.
the
Charles City
city,
is the
which is our,
community.
that's our
Yeah.
area code.
Yeah.
It's everybody, it's not just our kids, so.
You know, and I'm not saying, because Marita, I agree with you, that has been our measure, and you're not wrong. But you know what? It's also not wrong when you look on Twitter and see the Turkey Bowl and like, I mean, it's fantastic to see it. Don't get me wrong. I love it. You know, that everybody's getting together and enjoy and, you know, but it does start to look like, you know, and now that we do have access to vaccines at that age, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up with it all.
It does, and I think, you know, the Turkey Bowl certainly, and it's funny, you know, not funny, but it's a gotcha moment. Dr. Sieber doesn't have a mask. You know, we certainly knew what we were getting ourselves into, and we have to remember when we looked at opening up the optional piece, we looked at what games look like, what activities look like, and we did say that kiddos that are K through 8, they need to wear masks at the games. Now we are not.
Is it being enforced?
We certainly weren't enforcing it, but
Right.
we certainly put it out there for parents, and it
Right.
just obviously didn't happen to a lot of the kids. But to your point, we have progressed to try to not stay in as stringent mitigation that we can. We want to move forward. We want to be smart about it, and I think we've done that. And we said and we can certainly change our mind, but we've kind of set this up now with the Attorney General doing some things that he did this week. That obviously got people really excited. But we said last month, our numbers look pretty good. We're feeling pretty good. Let's see what happens after Thanksgiving. And then we knew at this meeting we only have 6 days left before break. And I will remind everybody that's what we kind of talked about. Yeah. And we also talked about, now we're looking at numbers and they're not great, but coming back after winter break, we will very quickly have another meeting. We have 4 days back and then 3 days, and then we have another meeting. And so the eye is on that next meeting in January, what it looks like, and get through the holiday season where we're at. So we are progressing and trying to see kind of where we're at and see what we do with holidays. And so we've kind of planned for that a little bit. So
I feel that, you've already said it, I'm just going to add on that when we decided to have the high schools had the optional masking, we then did the notification so that it started on the following Monday, and they had time then to make their changes and parents make their decisions. And we've talked that this meeting has just a few days before the winter break, and then when we come back, a short few days, like maybe a week before we have our board meeting. And I think that's our crucial meeting time, then to make changes and allow parents to then start making decisions at that meeting. This one, there's so little time before we go into the winter break, and with the numbers that have kind of spiked up.
Well, how long have the K through, you know what, my kids are older, so I haven't paid attention. How long have the younger kids had access to vaccine?
Only since
November
November.
3rd.
And they were hard to get at
It was.
first. And as a parent of a 36-year-old, but I remember when she was young, you know, things don't always happen according to schedule. If you did everything right and talked to your physician, you know, you would have had time to get them, your elementary school kids vaccinated with, you know, weeks to spare.
At the earliest,
Yeah.
if you look at a calendar,
Oh, yeah.
a child could, 11 and under, 5 to 11, that range.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 weeks after your second vaccine,
Yes.
you're considered fully vaccinated, would be December 1st.
Oh.
So we're a week out from, if you got it the day it was approved, that
yeah, and
possibly the ages 5 through 11 could be.
And I've spoken to the health department, the health director too, and we don't have specific numbers for our St. Charles City kids, and we're certainly not mandating them to get but her perception of the volume of families, and again, it's all the county. And again, the way we did it was we made sure we sent information out so parents knew where to get the information to go get the vaccine. We haven't had any issues with parents, or we haven't heard anything that families having access to the vaccine, so that's part of it.
I haven't heard about it.
And the health director said that there's been really good, steady volumes of people coming in to get shots for kids.
So
But that has been a part we've been talking about too, and we talked about in November, about giving that a little bit of opportunity too to get vaccines in kids.
do kids have to go to their pediatrician, or can you go to the health department? Can you go into
That's what I'm saying.
CVS like I got?
You can go anywhere.
Yes.
You can
Okay.
go anywhere you
Okay.
want. But what we have done
Okay.
is we have teamed up with the health department, and we sent out information, and it's out on the website that said, this is where you look for, this is how you sign up, and just like they did for the adults, they've had ongoing clinics at the Family Arena, at the site here on Boone Slick, and there is ample access for parents and kids to get the shots. And so we talked about giving that a little time as well.
Yeah, and then my next question would be, because we're 6 days to break, and then just 3 days or 4 days back for the next meeting, how are we going to have a true account of I guess because this is community still.
It is, but remember, when we get back on that Tuesday's the 4th, we actually go to school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
And then we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday's our meeting. So we actually have, do the math.
Okay, 8
We do.
days.
So
Well, we're
that-
talking about 14 school days. We have 6 days left.
Yeah.
Before break, and we'll have 8 days left after coming back from winter break,
And,
before our board
and,
meeting.
and coming back with mass on K through 8 to us gives us an opportunity to come back of all the things that happened during winter break and at least know that we're a mass, because my opinion, once you take mass off, you're not going to go back. You just aren't. The threshold will be there. You can keep your threshold, but you're not going to go back. And I don't want to flip it on people. And again, I'm ready. I mean, it's interesting because there's this view that, oh my gosh, we just need to be a mass forever. No, we don't. We're progressing, and our plan has been all along. I'm not saying for sure, because you have to vote, that it's going to happen in January, but it would be great if it happened in January. But right now, the numbers aren't great.
But I think that's what we have to think about too, is what if the numbers are worse at our January 13th meeting? Then are we giving people false hope, saying, let's make it through break and see, and then.
Right.
Well, in all fairness though, Heidi, I feel like we've done that every meeting. You know what I'm saying? Every meeting, the next meeting could be the meeting. You know what I mean?
Well, and
Because that's just the way
And there
we
is
have
the
to do
false hope,
things.
because
But it depends
these
on how
people
you-
come each time,
And it depends on how
take time
each
from their
person
day.
perceives all of this,
Right.
right? I mean, the false hope and what the Attorney General has set out. I mean, there's just, there's
Yeah, he
perception.
really muddied the waters.
There's perception about everything. And so Heidi, to your point, all we have said is we're going to give an honest look at it every month, and we have. And I think that next honest, really good look will be January.
And can I just throw something else in there, because I always like to, but it also means though that if somebody is exposed, so even if we do go optional, if they are exposed and they are listed as a contact, those kiddos will have to wear their mask
for 14 days.
from the 14 days after the last exposure. So, you know.
If they approve that, if that's what they
Right,
choose to do.
Right, and that's the recommendation right now that, is that that would continue, because there is the opportunity that those kiddos, have been exposed and could bring it. So it's not that we would still try to, I would assume, protect anybody who might be exposed to like a.
Well, sure, yeah.
So if we go to the next slide, Chris, 14, we did put a recommendation together, so then you can have a conversation off of that. But to this point, and this is kind of off our conversation from November and kind of what our plan was. So masking, keep optional masking for 9 through 12 and early childhood. We would keep mandating masking for K through 8, but review COVID numbers, metrics for serious consideration of going to optional masking on January 13th at the board meeting. And then obviously there's variables. There's the other variants could possibly have delay changes, but we certainly would take a real good look at in January. And then just a reminder, masking on buses still continue to be a federal mandate. And then the quarantine in quotations, again, because we're not quarantining, will continue, meaning students exposed in school or out of school, it doesn't matter, It doesn't matter if they're masked or not masked, they can still come to school. So we've got the most lenient quarantine you can have, meaning they're not quarantined at all unless they have symptoms or they are COVID positive. This also includes the ECC at this time. We would continue to contact trace and keep positive and to keep track of the positive exposed cases, but we would not turn that into the health department because they're not taking it. Okay, but that keeps some of the mitigation where we're at. And I want to make sure you know what the recommendation is. So then, just so you know, we were doing tests to play for our athletes and for our band members and different things. And so we just got word from the Missouri High School Association, and they're basically saying, and I quoted them in there, each school will have to make their own determination on contact tracing, close contact quarantines, and test to stay options, basically test to play options under the direction of their Board of Education. And so they're not saying that you have to do anything. At this point, it's up to you all. So my recommendation to that is that, and it says, is our hope, the desire that the schools and the boards will continue to do the practices. So our feeling would be, we would not continue test to play. We would stop that after this meeting, and basically we continue with the same quarantine of everybody else. So if you're exposed, and we know you're exposed, again, if you're sick and if you've got COVID, you're not going to be participating. But if you're exposed, they can continue to participate. But if they're locker rooms, obviously buses, they are benches, that type of thing, we would do the 14 days mask, but they can still participate in the games.
They wouldn't be wearing a mask in the game.
No.
You're saying.
I hate to be the harshest patootie, but I have an issue with that. The test to play. I think it should continue because we're supposed to be protecting our kids.
The test to play, just so you know, and I'm not rebuttaling that, and I appreciate that comment, but I will just say this. The way the test to play was set up per the guidelines or the recommendations of the state level and then also MSHA is, and we're getting ready to go into a 2-week break. It is a very stringent process for kids to get tested every day to just be able to participate. We're going to have a hard time. I'm looking at Julie because she's got to train people. And then if we're using those tests, they have to be basically marked and submitted in a certain way because of the testing. There's just a lot to it that I don't know if we're going to get that it's really worth it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, over break, we would have to have any coach get trained on how to administer the test, get trained on how to send in the results. Those results then would have to be sent in by myself or Emily over the holiday, over the break. But then if there was any discrepancy or something left off in any detail, we would have to be able to get a hold of the coaches or whoever's doing the testing to get the amount of information it wants whenever we send in the test results is very, very thorough, to the point of ethnicity and parents' phone numbers and everything. And so if any of that's missing, then we aren't following the guidelines for the testing that we're given the testing, and I kind of feel like it's going to be very rare to pull that off over the winter break. And also within that, though, we aren't going to even know if kids are contacts over winter break, right? So if a kid does get become a contact on the first day of winter break, we wouldn't know that necessarily because there are no quarantine guidelines. And so we're testing, it was put in place to test kids that are in quarantine, but really there aren't kids on quarantine because there is quarantine.
There's no quarantine to the exposure anymore.
So I just really express the opinion that I see a terrible paradox here.
Yeah.
We're doing all this masking and so on to keep kids in school, but yet we're allowing our kids to go out there and play with each other and spread the disease or whatever it is and keep them out and eventually perhaps keep an entire team out of school. You understand what I'm trying to say? To me, this is a paradox.
But we would continue, though, if we didn't know that there was an exposed case and the kids were exposed, they certainly would have to follow the same rules as what we would do at school. They would have to wear a mask for the 14 days. So there are still mitigation things that we would be doing. We just wouldn't be testing every single day like the the plan was specifically supposed to be. And we can put some testing in. We're just telling you that we don't know if we're going to be able to even know who's been exposed because we're going on a 2-week break. And if we do, we don't know if that testing is going to get done the right way. It could get done, but we don't know if it's going to get reported the right way. And we're going to have I can just tell you the other school districts, and I don't know the facts in terms of exactly who's doing, but there's really nobody doing test to play. There's not a lot of people doing
It
it.
would be more restrictive than what we're doing for kids to come to school if we did it, because what we're saying is we should follow the same protocol for coming to school and being symptom-free if you're exposed and wearing a mask in athletics as we would if they were coming to school and sitting next to somebody in the classroom.
But I
But
think
you're
the
saying if-
issue is we're saying they don't have to wear a mask when they're playing a game. I think that's what Marita's bringing up is we're saying wear a mask on the bus, wear a mask on the bench, wear it in the locker room. But then if you go out and play a basketball game, you can take it off. Correct? Is that?
Well, and if you watch, and that's what I would say, because I would, again, because there's reality that sets in. Because if you watched all of the St. Louis County school kids that had to be a mask playing last year, nobody wore a mask the right way. They drop them. And so, again, we've had this conversation, and actually Julie really, because she's the one who does the testing and really works with them, and we had that conversation, and I kind of said, hey, how can we still test? I'm fine with, I'm not throwing her under the bus, but you really feel confident in what we can do with the masking. And if you want them to wear a mask while they're playing, we can do that. I'm just telling you, I don't see that we have a lot of other school districts that are going to be doing that at this point, but they might. And we can certainly put some testing into play. I think if we do this, I don't think it needs to be every day.
And I don't think that we're making a lot of difference right now with the test to play because we have such low numbers. Like if we have, I think 2 at each high school right now that are COVID positive. And so like, I don't feel like we have almost all of our kids that have, I think we've come back with 1 student maybe for test to play that actually was COVID positive. So it's kind of, I don't know how much more it's doing when we're just putting those other mitigation strategies in place, like the masking up.
If we do the same protocol for our athletes, which I think would be my opinion, whatever we're doing for our students in our classrooms would also follow with our band programs, choir programs, athletic events. And I think many of you would know, I know, of even last year when things were so restricted, there were high school basketball kids that wouldn't report, wouldn't tell them if they'd been exposed. Now, if there are symptoms, of course, they stayed out, but we'll have tournaments starting. Kids that play basketball tournaments.
It's so complicated
Yeah.
and so convoluted, this
There's no
whole
way we
thing.
would be able to know, really,
Yeah.
if a kid was exposed.
I have a question that say with what Francis Howard that, and somebody on their team, they reported that they played in the game, reported to our.
A lot of kids don't report.
We did,
Yeah.
there was some of that reporting done last year, and we would call and say, we had a kiddo that was exposed, and then they would have to say, hey, did that kid play a lot near that kid? I mean, it was just hard, because you're talking about kids running around, and so each school then, in each team would have to decide, are we at risk of exposing our kids? And I guess our point is, and believe me, guys, obviously we have people here and people that email, we have a lot of things in place, and you can get mixed, why are you doing this but not doing that? I'm just telling you, the reality of it is, when you have a child or a student playing an instrument or playing in the play, wearing a mask is tough to do when you're exercising. And so that's why we were saying, at least be in the mask while they're not playing and doing certain things would help. If you want to keep testing, we can just tell you, that's going to be, that will be a challenge during the break, but we can try that. We certainly had it set up. We're just saying at this point, when you've got all this pressure, and the health departments are saying, we're not really taking any quarantine letters or anything right now, it's hard to say to a kid, oh, you can't play now, or you have to be tested to play before you can go, or tested to even come to school. We're not doing tests to stay either.
Are there any extracurricular activities scheduled over the break for elementary and like K through 8?
No.
No.
No, no.
So
It's your wrestling tournaments, it's your
Yeah,
basketball
so
tournaments.
Yeah, so
I-
those high school kids have had the opportunity to get vaccinated and
And-
now
yeah.
booster.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what, in my mind, the direction, when I think it through, we're going to, is just giving those younger kids a little more opportunity to get out there, get vaccinated if they need it, and then we've got to start moving on.
Yeah.
And then it's
Well,
up to
but that's-
parents to
Because this
decide.
is like,
Exactly.
But we've had these conversations, and
Of course.
we've kind of planned for hopefully January
I just
being
want
our
to say it
moment.
out loud. I just want to say it out loud.
We said it.
Yeah.
We said it in November.
Right.
So
Because-
we've said it all along. The only thing that's tripping you up though is the numbers are getting a little bit higher, and you've got some variables coming into play. I'm just throwing that out there. We have to balance all
The
that.
Omicron is mild, and
Yeah.
it's mixed with the cold, so it's going to spread like crazy.
But we have kind of set this up, and I certainly don't think we would have this much excitement if we didn't get the letter and get the things that we got this
Sure.
week.
Oh, yeah,
Because we, as we said here in November, things can change. But we are trying to progress forward and get masks off kids as fast as we can. With the holiday season things, we've said we would like to look at it again in January 13th and go from there. That's what we said all along. Now, back to the testing, test to play. I can just tell you, if the issue is if they're going to wear a mask or not when they're going to play, I can tell you, even if they test to play, there won't probably be a mask wearing when they're playing. That's just, bless you. It's just, that's hard to do.
All I was bringing up is that we are living a paradox. That's all
Yeah.
I'm bringing up.
Yeah.
And we are, even right now, saying our elementary kids haven't had enough time to have the opportunity to get vaccinated. That's one of our hangups. We know that they live outside the school, and so they're not wearing masks when they're at the turkey game or when they're at their soccer, So you're right, it's
And
a paradox.
it's easy to poke holes on everything because a lot of it, sometimes this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, and you can cherry pick and pick what you want. All I know is for every month I have come to you, I have said, here are the numbers, here's the plan, here's a recommendation or a discussion we need to have, and put you in a position to make a decision. So you can vote all of it, you can vote the test to play, I would hope we would at least keep test to play. I want our kids to be able to play over break, but if you don't want, you want them to still test, you can still do that. But I would at least want to put a plan together for you to vote on, because again, the whole piece to this, or the whole key to this is you as a Board of Education vote on the mitigation practices and protocols for our school district. I also would say that the threshold of 3% is still there as well, and you've put that in place last November.
And the other change on this recommendation is that early childhood will become optional. Is that right?
They're already
They're
optional.
already
No,
optional.
they're
The only
in the
change-
same quarantine.
And see,
Yeah,
there,
the only
and see,
change is the quarantine, because we can't really quarantine, because we've never been the one. It's always been the health
Right.
department do the
Right.
You
quarantine.
can't do,
Okay.
they're
Okay.
forcing their hand to
and
that.
they're optional with no access to vaccine.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
But that's been some recommendations and some
I'm
things
not,
as well.
I'm not judging anything. I'm just speaking things into existence. I'm just saying, it's,
One is hard, and I mean, the vaccine is key, because I'm sitting here with 6 feet apart with no mask, because I've had 2 vaccines and a booster, so I'm not that concerned.
Yeah.
But everybody has it.
right. But at this point, if you're my age, that's by choice,
Yeah.
And so, I don't know what to tell people that don't, I don't know. So,
And I just looked up our test of plays. It looks like since our winter sports have started, it looks like we've only really had one student that we have currently in the test of play kind of category. But again, I think that majority of talking to our athletic directors when we first started this, I think a lot of our athletes that don't want to miss have gotten vaccinated.
sure.
Because they
Yeah.
know that that's always a
That's
big
the other thing, is if you're vaccinated, it trumps it all.
Right,
And that's a
Right.
whole nother conversation too.
right. And
Well, if that-
does anybody in this room know, Heidi, you might know, are kids, the 5 to 11-year-olds, are they having a hard time getting the vaccine?
I think initially it was hard to get appointments.
But it's,
Because,
now
I mean,
it's-
I know from personal experience, like, I mean, you got on the Wednesday, it was okay, and
Yeah.
I couldn't get an appointment till like
Sure.
Sunday or Monday.
Yeah.
So I think initially there was, but I don't think overall, it's just, it's essentially a 6 weeks. You're not looking at like shot, you're good to go. I mean, it's a 6-week process from the November 3rd date. So like I said, I mean, last Wednesday was the first day that someone could have been, and that's if you got vaccinated the day that it was approved. So, I mean, we're in the window of, I think, people still being considered
Still,
fully in the
Right.
5 to 11
Right,
range.
right.
And I can say that, my family's, we've all had our boosters too now, and
Yeah, me too.
I've gotten on for all of them to help schedule, and
Right.
it's been like the next day. You can pretty much go to a Walgreens or
Yeah.
CVS and schedule it pretty much anytime you want.
That's how, yeah.
It really is. And-
St. Charles and my son's in Cape, we could just walk right in. But
Right.
my daughter's in Chicago, that was like a 4-day wait.
Yeah,
so-
well, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's really easy to
Yeah.
get, and again, like, depending on what you get, some vaccines have the 2 weeks in between, and the other one has 3 weeks in between, so we are, and then we talked about that at the last board meeting, that getting through this till about Christmas break would give those people, because that, you're assuming that people could go out the very first day. And we know, I think it was the big one at the health department, wasn't that one on the 10th of November?
Yes.
It was,
I
yeah,
think
the
so.
first big one that we sent out a big blast on. So, for majority of people, they weren't able to get it on the 3rd, but we're getting really close.
And they're having continuous events.
Marita, were you gonna?
Yeah, so playing the devil's advocate, and the reason why we wouldn't make that change starting, let's say, Monday, is because a matter of 14 days, school days, right? No, excuse me, 10 school days, correct?
Well, 6 days in December and 8 days in January. So 14 total days.
Because for 14 days, we wouldn't make that change because it's only 14 days, is that what you're saying?
Well, and we've discussed this in November, is that now we're 6 days away, and then we're going to be gone for
Oh.
2 full weeks and 3 weekends. And what does that bring? We don't know. And then they're
Okay.
going to come back, and we start on a Tuesday, and by that following, a week from that Thursday, you're going to have another meeting. And so.
So, okay, so is it fair logic to say that this way we get an opportunity to see what's going to happen over the holidays, in as much as the numbers are going up, the percentage, this way we give that opportunity to see what's going to truly happen after the holidays? And then we will be able to make a better decision. Is that what, is that?
And that's what
is
we,
that an
yeah, and
accurate
that's what
statement?
we as a group
Okay.
talked about in November.
Right.
So
Well,
it's not.
and giving those, yeah, it
That's
gives
right.
those kids a longer
I'm-
window.
I'm looking more at the
Yeah.
window of time for parents to get their
And this is the
children
exact
vaccinated.
conversation we had in November. We
Yeah,
thought this
okay.
was a good plan with the holiday season and how our board meetings have lined up. And again, I'm just giving you an opportunity to have a recommendation to start with a conversation. It's up to you as a Board of Education to
Can I make a
decide what you
motion?
want to do.
Yes, you can.
I think we're going to have to do more than one motion. I'd like to, is that correct?
Well, if we
I think
make a
we-
motion to approve
I
the
think we're approving it
recommendations.
as presented, aren't we?
To do what?
I think we're approving it as presented.
Well,
Okay.
but
Am I wrong?
you could add that I move to approve the recommendations in the COVID update. Because the
All right.
update is just the update.
And that
So,
would take care of it all,
yeah,
Kelly?
because there's the whole,
That would take care of everything?
I think so.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the recommendations as listed regarding COVID, masking, period.
just in the COVID update.
Yeah, in the COVID update.
I second.
Okay. Do we want to vote? Do you want to roll call vote or you just want to vote? We're fine. Is that right?
I don't care.
All right. We have a motion to approve the recommendations in the COVID update presentation and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item 6.03, we have the COVID-19 leave discussion.
Dr. Lewis?
Well, of course,
Converting your system pretty fast if you have multiple children.
if we're not doing quarantining anymore,
Well,
though,
again, it's not our students, you have a preschooler and the preschooler shuts down because the teacher has COVID or something like that.
Oh.
Which is what I'm getting a lot of as the last couple of weeks is, or you're in another school and they practice totally different philosophies, or different school districts out there, they practice different philosophies.
this quarantining, this no longer quarantining is only in our St. Charles County Health Department?
It can be the private, I mean, well, yeah, it's hard to speak for what happened in St. Louis County, or even like private schools, or even daycares. They're, that's just a totally different ballgame when you get to daycares and private.
So we're still in a window of time where teachers could be looking at using up a lot of days. Yeah.
There's a school district in the county, and there's also school districts in St. Louis County that are still with protocols of keeping kids
Out, and
Yeah,
so parents
we're
would be out.
as lenient as you can in terms of,
Yeah.
but there are certain situations where kids are still having to be out.
Well, and the isolation piece too, so not just the quarantine, but if their daughter, I have somebody out now, their daughter's got COVID, so they have to stay home with that student too. So it's not just the quarantining, it's
It's a lot of
the
peace of
actual
mind
positive
for our
cases and people having to take care of them.
It provides, I think it does provide
Are
some,
we going to do this when people get the flu
no.
and other such diseases?
I think when we're looking at the,
I wouldn't mind.
this resolution, I think, in the way that I've looked at this all along is, if a system, right, if a system is telling us we can't work, or a system is telling us that our children can't attend school or preschool or something, that's where this really kicks in. Now, the flu, you get the flu, you're done. If you get the flu, if you didn't have the flu, you could come, right? But I'm healthy, but my child tells me, but my child can't attend school because they were close contact. So I think that's the way to go about looking at this, because you can have a mom or dad perfectly healthy, child is perfectly fine, but that child has to stay at home for X number of days until they can return back to school, because the school is telling them when they can return.
I need you to go along with me to IRS to work out my taxes. You explained it very well.
Is there any other discussion on the COVID leave for
I
the
can make a
second
motion.
semester? Do I have a motion?
Sure. I move to approve the COVID-19 leave resolution as presented.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Item 7.01, this policy change just has been placed in here, and I think you read the part from MSBA. We are following it as the time restraints have changed for signing the election of school board members. We're following it correctly, but they wanted to make sure we had the policy updated. So that's what this is for. Do you have some questions and discussion on it?
No, so if we have no discussion, there'll be a second reading, and if we just agree with it, it just goes automatically
Yes.
in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll vote on that then at our January meeting. We're ready for item 7.02, and this is the calendar for 22 and 23, 23, 24. Who's doing
It's
it?
just around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we had a lot of calendars here.
Yeah, we got a lot.
But in the end, we had our calendar committee, I was a part of it. So we had our calendar committee and we voted. What was really interesting about that is that I think our committee and a lot of our parents from the survey did not want to start on a Monday. So at least going into next year, we'll start on a Tuesday, but elected to push the last day from being out and went to Thursday and then push it back to Friday, not have it today, but everything else pretty much stays the same. It's what you get every 2 years, what we do is with our calendar committee.
Is there any discussion on the calendar?
No.
You know, I also appreciate the fact that when you have a committee who have worked on it, and they'd bring the recommendation to us. I'm not usually one to start nitpicking it, but they thought was what their group decided. Do I have a motion to approve the 22, well, you can read it.
Sure. I move to approve the 2022, 2023, and 2023, 2024 calendars as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor? Those opposed? That passes. We have a bond projects update.
Yes,
Charles,
yes, it is me. We have, it's actually 2 bids in one item related to our Monroe project. You remember Monroe is basically a gut renovation of the interior of the building, the 2 main classroom wings, and then complete replacement of all the HVAC and fire systems in the building. So what you have in front of you tonight is the base HVAC bid plus a fire sprinkler bid for the building. The fire sprinkler is the entire building. The HVAC is all of the building with the exception of 4 smaller units that will be included in phase 2 for next summer. So this is not the architectural work, it's just HVAC and fire equipment. Architectural for the first phase, which is spec'd for this summer, will be bid next month. It's about ready to go out on the street. I can't remember the timing on that one. I don't think you'll actually see it for approval until February. But the HVAC bidders here and fire bidders here will, by contract, be required to work for whoever our GC is, the general contractor selected for this summer's work. So we are going to ask you to approve their bids so that they can go ahead and get equipment ordered. But contractually, once we get the project underway, we'll still have just one general contractor with these bidders working as part of their contract. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you'll see we had multiple bidders for HVAC, 2 bidders for fire sprinkler. The HVAC base bid, the low bid came from Sheet Metal Contractors Incorporated. We've used them multiple times. When they are doing a standalone project and acting as their own general contractor, they use the name Craftsman Contracting. So they did work for us at Jefferson under that name. But we've had them multiple times working for other general contractors as sheet metal contractors, same outfit, just a different corporate heading depending on the way they're working. And so we're very convinced that they can do the work. And as you can see in the recommendation letter from our mechanical engineers, they believe that to be the case as well. And then fire sprinkler, we had 2 bids. The base bid from Gateway Fire Protection is the low bid. And again, we have worked with them, and FSG has also worked with them on a number of other projects. And so they would recommend we approve the bids from those 2 companies. Now, one thing that I'll just briefly mention now that we can't do a darn thing about, but you've probably seen our neighbors in the news related to a high school that appears to be going to cost 100% more than their initial. So several people already this week have said, what's happening with our bids? These bids are actually about 2% higher than what we thought the work would be. So we're really pleased, frankly, that we're only 2% higher than we thought this would be. But that's why we're bidding so early also, and we felt like that was in our favor to get this HVAC equipment particularly ordered early because we're seeing really long lead times. And obviously, when you're talking about a building that we're not taking out of service, but we're just going to have to renovate over the summers, we don't have much margin for error on the back end. We need to open school on time. So we believe that's helped us there. The real tail of the tape will come on the Success project, which we should have to you for next month, and then this first phase Monroe project, which are both architectural. They don't have a tremendous amount of steel in either project, and steel has been sky high, but they have obviously quite a bit of masonry work and other associated interior architecture. So we are cautiously optimistic, but we have scheduled both the Success project and the Monroe project with a couple of alternate bids for 2 reasons. One, it allows us to see, for instance, at Success, one of the alternate bids is for doors. So it allows us to see what the cost is for that piece of the project separate from the rest of it, instead of just taking one number for the whole thing. The other piece is if we can, by just retaining the existing doors that we're not changing, we can save enough out of the bid and go ahead and accept the base bid and get the rest of the work done, then it salvages the main part of the project. The same at Monroe, we've got the Phase 1 project, which is the westernmost pod. We have it as an alternate bid to make some changes for the nurse and for the teacher's workroom. If that work bumps us above our budget, then we could cut that piece off the project and still get most of what we wanted. So we're probably going to see a number of alternate bids on many of our projects, at least until construction prices stabilize a little bit. Hopefully they drop back. But I can tell you, in talking with our architects right now, they have seen some of their projects bid as much as 30% higher than their estimates. They haven't seen anything close to what we're seeing happen in our neighbors' districts. So I think there's some additions to the scope of the project and things that also contributed to that problem. So
That's unbelievable.
knock on wood, and twice on Sunday, if you would, that we will continue to see that in our bids.
Okay.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right.
I like your story. I like your story a lot better than what we see
Would you like
next
a
door.
motion?
There you go. Start reading it.
Okay. I move to accept the bid from Sheet Metal Contractors, Inc. in the amount of $1,614,977 for HVAC, and the bid from Gateway Fire Protection in the amount of $417,722 for fire sprinklers on the Monroe Elementary project as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those pass. We're ready for item 8.01. Julie, is that you with the Health Services?
It sure is.
That is you.
I feel like all we've done is talk about health services all
Yeah,
year.
that's it.
We recognized the nurses and talked about everything they do in September. We talk about the COVID stuff they're doing and the grant and all of that. So I'm going to kind of just, stop me if I'm going too quickly, but I feel like some of this is just repetitive of what we've been talking about for the past 2 years, right? So as we know, some of the things they do besides, our health programs do besides the testing and the quarantining and the contact tracing, is that they really help our nurses really, and our health clerks really promote healthy lifestyle choices. They locate and help connect students and families with resources for any kind of health conditions that they that may affect learning. They help with any kind of acute and chronic medical needs during the day. Currently, we have 10 school nurses in each of our buildings. We have 3 health clerks that kind of split their time between our buildings. One goes between Hardin and High, and one goes between Jefferson and West, and then the other health clerk kind of helps with the larger elementary schools. We were able to hire a full-time district-wide nurse to help with our COVID procedures and our testing and our, even helping sub for some of our other nurses. So we did hire a new nurse at the last board meeting, and so she started and has been very helpful. So we do still have the other one currently posted and those 2 are the ones that are being paid for out of our testing grant that we got from the Department of Health and Senior Services. So some of the things that I'm bringing to you to kind of look at and help evaluate our clinics and our program, our health program. We're looking at the health conditions and the needs our students have, looking at our clinic visits, looking at kind of the COVID kids they're seeing for COVID symptoms and sending home for COVID symptoms, and looking at some of the services and groups that we partner with for services for our students. So we basically have two primary goals, is to promote the healthcare and instruction to our students and staff, and then promoting a safe and healthy school environment. So there's been a lot of ways that our nurses are able to help with those two goals. And again, a lot of those things are the things I just talked about. Promoting the health and safety school environment, all of the things that they've done extra on top of their current duties related to COVID have really helped promote a safe environment for our students, and part of the reason that we've been staying in school this long. So some other things they do is they provide professional development for our teachers. So if we have students with allergy symptoms or allergies and they need a EpiPen, they will train our staff that work with that student in the EpiPen use if they need, that they collect information regarding immunizations to make sure our students are all up to date on their immunizations per Missouri guidelines. And then if they have exemptions for those immunizations, we make sure that those students are utilizing the right processes for getting those exemptions. So they also really help with update our policies and procedures. They keep, if we would have a disaster or an emergency situation, they are prepared and have all of the emergency medical equipment we might need for the response. So they do they have multiple hats, lots of hats. So as we kind of look at the school year visits is one of the things that every year I give you guys the visits up to, not every year, every other year, up to October. And so if you look at kind of they see a lot of kiddos in the clinics, lots. Their clinics are very, very busy. And so if you look at the St. Charles School District Clinic Visit Summary on page 5, we go through each of the high schools. The nurses keep this information on a daily basis. Like there's a ginormous spreadsheet. They keep up with this daily. So this helps us determine what needs we have, where we split our health clerks, what types of assistance they might need. Do they need more equipment and supplies and things like that? So if you look through this, a lot of it is pretty comparative, and it kind of correlates with the amount of students they have in the classroom or in the school building. But Hardin is one of those buildings, and Jefferson, with the highest number of clinic visits. That's kind of our middle school kids, so some of it's self-explanatory for our middle school kids. But in kind of looking at Hardin, they have always had a really abundance of clinic visits. And I, would look at this and be pretty alarmed, except that I know that, as we have a new nurse coming into Hardin, and we've had some subs there recently, and some of our subs say that those kiddos like to come down for throat lozenges and Kleenex and face masks, and so we did a little gifting to each teacher's mailbox with lozenges and face masks and Band-Aids and things like that, so that those clinic visits could hopefully cut down a little bit, and some of those basic needs things can be done within the classroom without having to go to the nurse. And because that is if you want to look at the busiest place on earth, it's probably the Hardin Clinic. So, but again, some of those things we can kind of help and help support them. So.
It's interesting, I will add, I went to Hardin Middle School.
Yeah.
And I remember even then, it was kind of a treat to get to go to the nurse.
Yeah. It was so funny. I was over there visiting one of it was the day that our district-wide nurse came. And we did not have the sub in the building, so we threw her in first day, right? She's never been in a clinic. And multiple kids came in, and it was so funny because maybe it was the day before with the sub, she's like, oh yeah, that student's been down here like 8 times today. It was, sometimes pack. It's just like a comfort, like just needed, I don't know.
Well,
yes and no. A lot of our kiddos, they just don't really come. Our numbers at St. Charles West this year, and I probably just took it down. Yeah. But a lot of our kiddos are not coming with symptoms. Let me see if I have this. Yeah, at St. Charles West, we've
Oh, you're
only
right, yeah, zero
had
across the board.
15 kids all year long that were probable or positive, all year long. So this is up through October. That doesn't surprise me because most of our kiddos are not coming to school typically if they're sick. So it is a little surprising, but
Yeah, right.
Well, and, I just noticed.
oh, in
what-
September?
and The number at Hardin, 19 calls for 911? Just that 1 month.
Yeah, well, and without getting into too much about students, like if you have a student within a building that might have seizures, that might have severe medical needs,
It
sometimes
might be the same.
it could be the same student multiple times.
Also, sometimes they are false alarms. And just so you all know, because that's a good point, and just so you all know, when 911 is called, we actually get alerted by it, and so we can immediately find out exactly what's happening, so.
Yeah. And I do remember, if we look at St. Charles High, we did have kind of, I was thinking that was more of October. We did have a couple different times where they had higher numbers. So maybe that was in September. They have had almost double the amount of cases this year, so. So yeah, anything else you notice? I mean, Hardin to me was kind of the biggest. And in the past years, they've reported, we have a lot more visits than the rest. But again, it's like a lot of our buildings, when we meet with the nurses on a lot of ERD days, and we've talked about like, what can you do to keep the visits down and really see the kiddos that are really needing to be in the clinic, especially since COVID started. You don't want kids that unnecessarily come down to the clinic and possibly be in a situation where there could be, although we do have multiple different rooms for sick and things like that with COVID, but again, how can we keep some of these visits down? So,
It's generational.
But sometimes too, like I've gotten calls, because like your kid hurt his finger in PE.
Right.
It's not necessarily that they're like,
Right.
Have strep throat.
Or
You
like-
get a call from a nurse, or they're at the nurse's office for many different reasons. It's not always sickness, I guess.
right.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of medication. Like each medication, like the first number on there is every time a kiddo walks in their office for any need, whether it's a Band-Aid, whether it's a take their medicine, whether it's a throat lozenge. Like they document every single visit from every single kid.
You mean ice pack?
Yes, that's documented in there. So, yeah. And some kiddos think they're sicker than others. They really are. So anyway, so our nurses, along with all that, are doing all those other things like,
Some kids have a big
Yes.
test coming up.
yes, exactly. Or they don't eat, so a lot of them will come for their stomach hurts. They get a cracker, right? So those are all. Yeah, you're right, exactly right. She can list all of the
Right.
little things that they're going for. So, yeah, exactly. So let's see. Our nurses also do a really good job. I mentioned that they train our paras and teachers, but they also have worked with our bus drivers and our monitors, because sometimes some of those special, EpiPens and there's another one I can't think of, glucagon and things like that. Those emergency medications are some of our bus drivers have had to be trained in too. So then as we go a little further, my next big chart on page 11 was just, we know that our district is very, very, very resource rich. We try to connect with every resource we can get to help our students and families, is evident with our Care to Learn resource fair in the fall, with our Neighbor Helping Neighbor coalition, with our Care to Learn, what we provide for families. So these are multiple other agencies that actually connect with us. And many of these people on here, like Big Smiles Dental, Lens Crafters, Kids Vision for Life. Some of these organizations have been providing these services for our kids for years. I mean, they've been a partner for years, and they're providing these services for our kids at no cost to us and at no cost to families, which is amazing because, our kids can go to the dentist while they're at school. The dentist will come to school and give them an oral, exam. We've had kids get teeth pulled and get fillings done and things like that within school that they'd never have that opportunity outside of school. So,
Providing EpiPens, those are.
huh? Providing EpiPens, yeah.
that's-
And we did, and it wasn't on here anymore because we used to get Narcan also provided by an organization. So some of them have fallen off and some of them are on. But, and one thing I didn't put on here is, even because it really wasn't a company, but, having those tests provided to us. We don't pay anything for those Binax Now antigen tests that we've been testing for our kiddos. That's been something that the state has provided to us. So, we utilize any free resource we can.
Sure.
As long as it's not too,
Did you see the last one?
Yeah, I know, isn't it?
if it takes
Does
two.
does a van pull up with,
I know.
like Ghostbusters?
That would have been very helpful in
Oh,
about
lice busters?
2010 for me.
Yeah.
The summer of lice in my house.
Yeah. So anyway, so they really are, our nurses, honestly, like some of these, like I'll go and I'll know about 10 or 12 of them, and then I'll be like, hey, did you guys have anything else you want to add to the list? And it's like, man, they take it on and they try to get as many resources for our family as possible. So one other thing they do is they're very large integral parts of our IEP and 504 teams for students that have disabilities. And so they help develop those. They develop individual health care plans for our students. They make sure that all the appropriate people in the building have it and are trained on it so they know exactly how to react if there's a health situation. And as you know, they help control the spread of disease. Like it used to be, I think when I did this last time, it was things like pertussis and the flu, and now we had to add COVID to that list because they really do help with that. And then, so again, one thing I did want to, that was kind of different from previous years is during the pandemic, while a lot of our staff were at home teaching or things were shut down or whatever, our nurses were actually volunteering on the side and working for the health department during the day. So that was wonderful. They've administered vaccines at our community events. They have done the best they can to help educate families on, they don't just like send the quarantine letters and things like that to families. They call, they explain, they, teach them like reasons, why that's happening, when they can come back, what they can do, to help spread the disease. So they've done a great job. They've also, again, began testing our families. They do the contact tracing. They work very closely with pretty much everybody in the building to do this. So some of the professional development, I always try to kind of include those on here as well because those types of needs change. Some of the things that got added this year are the things towards the bottom of the list. Some of these are things they do every year when they're school nurse trainings. Chris, is about page 13. Some of the things that have really become new that you wouldn't have seen on here prior is they've been trained on anxiety in the pandemic because we know that's a big issue. I feel like I get emails daily about professional development on mental health in the pandemic, anxiety in the pandemic. Anybody else in this room that's working for the district probably knows that too. They've participated in almost every Zoom. We were Zoomed out with meetings from the health department, the Department of Health and Senior Services. Our nurses have done a great job trying to get on those with me, and we debrief afterwards and try to all get on the same page so that we all know what we're doing and how to move forward. And then again, the eradicate training is how they put all of that, how they get all that information out of the St. Charles County database. The Binax Now antigen testing, they did that training, and then that Johns Hopkins contact tracing course that most of the people, most of us all in CO were also trained in that. That was I think an 8-hour course that they did to, huh? Yeah. and basically on how to contact trace so that we were ready to go when school opened, and so that was another thing. So, and then again, I just, some more data, 14 and 15, and I think maybe part of 16, no, yeah, and part of 16 are our healthcare needs that our students have within our district. So I left all the previous years on there just so you could kind of see like certain things like allergies just seem to go up every year. Most other things are pretty stable, most of the other health conditions. So our kids don't seem to be getting sicker. They just go to the clinic more, right? One thing that I thought was really interesting on page 15 was that the ADHD and the ADD numbers are actually dropping quite a bit, and that's just diagnosed. So our nurses, it could also be how we're documenting them. So our nurses only really document them in our system if we have a medical information from the parent. If we don't on allergies or ADHD or any kind of medical situation, we don't necessarily submit it to the state. We might put it in as notes of parent reported so that we are cautious, but these are actual healthcare needs that are reported in SIS because they are actually documented concerns. So autism is another medical autism is something that we're seeing grow. That probably doesn't surprise you all at all. And so in our 504 plans, that was the last thing on the list. And that's, if you're not aware of what a 504 plan is, on 16, Chris, it's kind of more of a plan for accommodations and modifications for a child with a documented disability that may not meet IDEA, like special ed eligibility, but they still might have a documented disability such as ADHD, seizure disorder, diabetes, things like that, where they might need special accommodations at school. So our 504 plans, our numbers have grown over the years. So if you notice on the PD this year, I want to say majority of our nurses actually attended a day-long 504 training that a lot of our counselors and I also attended. So they're educating themselves in those plans because those numbers are really growing. So recommendations. So if you looked at 2 years ago, there's a couple on here that haven't changed, and that's because of COVID and because we haven't really been able to move forward with a couple of them. So really, as we look at recommendations, really honing in on that mental health. And it's funny because you talked about that with that note to the board this morning. We have put a big emphasis on mental health, and we know we have, with our ESSER funds, we've added a few social workers to the district. We've added, RTI specialists that are helping in our buildings. We've done anything we can to try and, help the mental health. But it's also something that's the needs are growing faster than we can meet them at this point. So that's definitely something that we need to focus on. And then really, keeping close community partners and trying to expand every year, trying to expand what we can do with the Care to Learn family event and any other events in our district. And then the next two is looking for further ways to support our families and students by collaborating with hospitals, clinics, and healthcare agencies, and trying to find out about the feasibility of actually offering medical care to students. Some of that, Dr. Seifer and I had talked about a couple of years ago, is that'd be really awesome if we could figure out how to be able to provide medical care, not just nursing, not just in the building, but there are a few districts in the area that, they're able to actually provide a clinic for kiddos for more doctor types of needs. Mm-hmm. And so that is something that has just not been able to really come to fruition or really get too deep into because we've been kind of in a reactive mode with this COVID thing. And so that's something that would be very something to focus on. And then the last goal is just mitigating and trying to give you guys the best information we can give you to help you make those decisions to keep our kids safe with COVID and hopefully just get through this. So that's a big part of our health program is that I do meet, again, I have a meeting tomorrow with the nurses to talk about whatever you guys decided here today, as well as kind of how things are looking with the health department and the no quarantines and things like that, so we're all on the same page. So they do give input, and they try to give their thoughts on how they would like to move forward. And I know that they've thanked you all in the past, like at meetings and things like that. So they are a part of trying to help move forward with and get through this. So that's kind of all I have in a big nutshell. But you guys know that they're working their tails off. And Emily and I are working our tails off to try and support them, because I have never worked so closely with the nurses as the past 2 years. It's just different.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Yes. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item 8.02, this is the 2020-21 audit. So Charles,
Yes, ma'am.
help us
So
with- help us with that.
you have finally the draft audit from Keith Schlusser, who is a partner at Fick, Eggemeyer, and Williamson, who is our audit firm. This is just the second year that they have done our audit. And Chris, if you could pull up the SCSD audit draft, that's where I'd like to start. Now, this is good bedtime reading for those of you who have any issues with insomnia, so I would recommend that you take it home and take a deeper dive. But I would preface my comments tonight by pointing out that Keith could not be here tonight, but is planning to come and join us in January and give us a slightly more in-depth review. So tonight, I'm not going to do much to steal his thunder, other than to point out that the first couple of pages kind of set out the job of the independent auditor. So this isn't a forensic audit. They're not looking for specific issues of malfeasance. They're not looking for a targeted audit for particular programs, with the one exception of federal programs that they do have to do kind of a targeted dive into one of the programs. But it's a general test of our systems and our procedures. So that's basically in pages 1 and 2 of the audit. But really, I'd like to draw your attention to the very last couple of pages. So Chris, if you could get us all the way down to page 37. This doesn't look like very much fun, but really is the tail of the tape. That doesn't look like my 37, is it? I mean, not the PDF 37, but the actual 37 of the document.
Oh.
Sorry. Thinking, wow, that looks different from way over here. I do need my glasses. So this schedule of findings and question cost is really where the rubber meets the road as far as getting the snapshot of the audit. And so I want to call your attention to just a couple of pieces. Section 1, summary of the auditor's results. The first note is the type of auditor's report issued. Unmodified is the best recommendation you can get on an audit, meaning they found no audit findings that need to be reported to you as a board. So that's good to see. As you look down through on internal controls, you'll see that there are no yeses. That's also good. In the section on federal awards, again, there's all no's, and those are good things. And then in the middle of that federal program section, they also note again that their federal programs review resulted in an unmodified report. And so as you move down, then you'll see that at the bottom of page 37, there's a question that says, auditee qualified as low-risk auditee, and the answer is no. That could be a bit confusing, because the threshold to be a low-risk auditee would be that if we have no federal programs where we're getting more than $750, and we have currently 4. So the big 3 that we normally have, Title I, special education funds, and food service. And this year, food service is significantly more, because obviously we're feeding everyone and being reimbursed as though everybody is free. And then the fourth big one now are ESSER funds. So those 4 federal programs will all exceed that threshold for a number of years. So we will always be a high-risk auditee in that respect, which just means that he did have to do that specific targeted review of a federal program. And then going on to page 38, you see in sections 2 and 3, they just noted there were no reportable conditions that they found to disclose. and the very bottom that there were no prior year audit findings. So that's all the good news and the happy stuff. But Chris, if you would pull up the management comment letter. This is a 2-page document that goes along with the audit and provides additional information. And in that comment letter, scrolling down to the bottom of the first page, you'll note there's a discussion about a control deficiency. That is different than something that is a material deficiency. Material meaning a larger, more important, more significant. And those material deficiencies result in audit findings. A control deficiency is a smaller issue, but it's something that they do want us to be aware of so that we don't have it happen multiple years, which could result in then an audit finding. So you'll see there that there are 2 current control deficiencies noted with recommendations, and then a prior control deficiency number 2. There are 2 that were noted last year, prior control deficiency 1 and 2. 2 has been cleared completely and to the auditor's satisfaction. The other 2 are related to one another. Control deficiency 1 is related to a misalignment between the bank reconciliation and what was on our books and our accounting system as of June 30. And then prior control deficiency 2 is about that bank reconciliation issue that they brought up last year in their first year with us, about the way that they preferred that we do that. So he's given us some recommendations there, and then the other document that you'll see I added this afternoon. So if you haven't had it, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Sure. That the director of business does review that, and then she sends an email to me noting that to confirm that that's been done after the file's been sent to the bank.
And the current control deficiency regarding the difference.
So that's actually in the other document. So let me, Chris, if you would pull up the district's response. But the issue there, honestly, is mainly change in staff and change in accounting systems. So those 2 events overlapped. So related to the more general prior control deficiency number 1, which was how we're reconciling the bank, that information was not communicated from our prior director to our current director, so she was unaware of that. And then at the same time, we anticipated that our prior director would be able to complete our transition from eFinance Plus to Alio. That did not happen for a variety of reasons, from pandemic to some personal issues in the prior director's family to just, frankly, some issues with our new vendor getting things delivered when we needed them. So, not excuses, please understand that. That's just an explanation. So we are still transitioning between the 2. And so what ultimately ended up happening is we transitioned paying all of our accounts payable expenses out of the new system. We retained payroll in the old system. That's still where we are. But what was happening is we were receiving deposits, and some of those were being deposited in the old system and some in the new. And so they did not match the bank. So what we were doing, and prior to catching this issue, what was still happening is we were doing a daily reconciliation of the bank. So somebody was saying, yep, we got 3 deposits, those deposits are over here, or we had this amount expended, that's amount. But we were balancing between 2 systems and 2 banks, and we didn't get it all tied into one single bow. So that still is a problem. It should not be a problem once we're completely on the system. And so in our response to the management comment letter, I did draft this, and then just today got our Mr. Schlesser to review it, just to clarify that I heard him correctly and that this was a good plan going forward, and he agrees that it is. And so related to this whole issue, I gave you a little bit of background, but the plan to address them is noted in items 1 through 5 towards the bottom of that page, where we've identified the correct starting balances, obviously, for this year. And we are working to make sure that we're balancing deposits both on that daily basis, so we see what's coming in and out on a single day, but then also on a monthly basis in the form that Keith suggested to us last year, but we failed to implement. The district's going to ensure that everything gets booked in the new system, which is Alio. And then I'm going to see that bank reconciliation each month and create a similar record to the one that I just described to you that goes out with payroll that comes to me. I'll see the bank reconciliation and create a similar email back to Lavinia to note that I've noted either that the bank is reconciled according to what she sent me or that there's some issue that we need to look at further, just to create another record that could be referenced in the future if necessary. And I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes. And then 4, we've engaged an outside CPA outside of Fick, Eggemeyer, and Williamson. So the reason for doing that is that Fick, Eggemeyer, and Williamson, to maintain their independence as our outside auditor, has a very limited ability to give us consulting accounting work. But one of the things that he suggested we do temporarily, and I've suggested here at least 6 months, is engage an outside CPA for a few hours at the end of each month to make sure we have closed the books correctly and that everything matches. So we've identified that person. His name's Jim Torty. He worked for a local CPA firm, Showalter and Jabouri, and did primarily governmental audits, lots and lots of schools, and he's recently retired from them. He's going to work with us each month to kind of review our work and just make sure that we got it done correctly. And then we've also set up a conference so that Keith and Mr. Torty and Lavinia can all three sit together and make sure they're all understanding exactly what each one's piece of that puzzle is. Any questions?
So the CPA that we're going to be hiring for the next 6 months, and I see that you have it here, but I'm stating, not only will he be reviewing our processes, but he will be training so that after 6 months.
Yes, as necessary, he would also provide that if needed.
They'll all be looking and doing things in the same
Sure,
manner.
but our intent is really to follow what our auditors told us and then to present Mr. Torty with the final product so that then he's just looking over it. So again, when I talked with Donna about this earlier today, and I said, this isn't hiring a full-time person at all. This is hiring a person for probably 3 or 4 hours, ideally, once a month to look at the work, not in any kind of on an ongoing basis, but not a full-time basis.
But the ongoing part will be that the office will now all be hearing
Correct.
the same information and getting on the
Yes.
same page.
That's our intent, yes, ma'am. And we found Keith to be really, really helpful to us. You know, one of the things that is hard but helpful about auditors is they almost always have something to tell you about how you could improve processes. And so he's really good at that, but he's also very kind and respectful as he's doing it. He doesn't project any kind of superiority, just a better way to do it. And we're always open to a better way to do things, open to correcting errors. So that's the bottom line, is that he's been very helpful to Lavinia in getting this corrected. And I think Mr. Torty also he's already done a bit of consulting with us, and he's also got a really good way about him that he's got the perspective of an outside view, knowing how other districts have done these things as well.
One of the questions that I ask every year when I'm in what really bothers me, the $5 million check that we write to teachers and to companies and that says here, all checks are signed by the accounting software
They are.
rather than by human.
They are.
So tell me again for the 9th time. Who really checks those, all
So the checks come in multiple spots, Marita. So for instance, with, say, just taking one of Julie's requests for an outplaced student, for instance. She gets that initial contract and initiates a review of the contract before we ever agree to a transaction. And then once she, as the director, has agreed that we want to do that, then her assistant can put into the system a payment for an invoice based on that contract. Once that payment is entered into the system, then it goes right back to Julie again to approve that, yes, that is a use of our budgeted funds that's appropriate and that she's checked it. Once somebody has made that initial check, then it comes to me or Lavinia. We've got it split out. She looks at all transactions below $3,500. I see them above $3,500. And Lavinia or I check it again to make sure that it fits the budget and also appears to be appropriate. But we have the benefit of already seeing that Julie's approved it, or a principal, or whoever initiated the transaction. We have another final review in AP before the check's cut, where our AP specialists look to make sure it's coded correctly, so that we're not in the example I gave of an outplaced student. That's a contracted service. We can't pay for that with a supply budget. It needs to be in contracted purchase services. So we do that check and make sure we're coding it correctly in the budget. And then the checks are then written after that. So there's a multi-leveled approach. We have actually stepped that up in recent years. Our previous software didn't allow for that first check by Julie or by a building principal. It was just checked once at central office. So we've added in an additional point for every transaction to be checked. And then the payroll clerk checks as or payroll specialist as she's putting in the work. The business coordinator and then the director of business also check those before they're sent to the bank. You're welcome.
There's a lot of ayes. Any other questions for Charles on the audit? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Sorry. I move to approve the 2021 audit review report as presented.
Do I have a second? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? So the audit review passes, and we're ready for item 9.01.
So yes, Chris has got the right one up there. Scroll to the next screen, if you would, Chris. There's our month end. Just going to the bottom line, you'll see across the county revenue, we still have no county revenue booked. That's unusual for us. We would have expected some fines and forfeitures by now, but they have not appeared yet, hopefully by the end of this month. And the local revenue still looks pretty low, as you can see, but that's because all of that is a sales tax right now. By the time you get to our January meeting, which, as we've discussed, is only 14 school days from now, you'll see a lot of local taxes being booked, because we will, by the end of next week, have started receiving payments from mortgage companies and banks from escrow accounts. So, and then I would also reference the hole that it looks like we're digging in Fund 4 really is balanced out by a whole lot of bond revenue that's not on that sheet. And so 2 pages further down, Chris, you've got year-end November 2021. Again, that shows the beginning fund balance at the beginning of the year, 33 million. Ending fund balance of 5.1, which is really 6.2 when you add the negative showing in Fund 4. But again, this is our very lowest point of the year, the end of November. We've made it past our December 5 payroll, which is always the pinch point to make sure we have cash available. And then we start seeing that big influx of local tax revenues over the next month or so. We'll get we're owed about $51 million in local taxes. We'll get the vast majority of that, about 97, 98% of that in the next 4 weeks. And then we'll start our downhill slide again on the fund balances for the remainder of the year.
I still miss not seeing the projected.
That's actually in here this time.
Did I miss it?
It is. It's down there, Chris. Let me see where I'm at. It's actually dipped a bit.
It's the other direction, isn't it?
Yeah, the very bottom
Yeah.
one.
Oh.
Estimated fund balance, oh, nope, sorry, wrong one. At least I don't see it.
Budget adjustment. Is it that one?
Budget
I'm sorry, it's under the budget
It's the budget
adjustment
adjustment
one. Yeah,
report.
thank
Thank
you.
you, sorry. Yes.
That's,
So we're estimating a little under 20% at this point.
That's
That's partially because we've had slow state revenues and no federal revenues thus yet. So once those come in, I would expect that'll tick up several percent. So I'm not overly concerned with that, but I know that's a good barometer that we watch month to month too, Donna. So thank you for reminding me of that. Any other questions?
can we put this page on the page for the board, so I find the, look at the same.
I'll start combining them again.
Thank you. Any questions for Charles about the financial report? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the last item on the agenda.
I second.
Okay, do I have a second for the financial report?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That financial report passes. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Ooh, I move to adjourn the meeting.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
On those opposed? Thank you. That's another yay verily.